need to think right. We need to have a right thinking. Amen.
Mm.
We need to have a right thinking in order for us to practice discipline to ourselves. In verse 9, we see another important verb is to practice. The things that Apostle Paul taught, it is the present tense, meaning he was asking them to keep on practicing this virtue, that virtue. The Philippians 4 verse 8. That is Philippians 4 verse 8. Things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, those virtue. Keep on practicing. And in verse 9 said, the things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, this do, and the God of peace will be with you. If we are going to do this and keep on practicing those virtues, God is going to be with us.
Amen.
What we continue to think about will continue to impact our actions. Thinking rightly is crucial, as this affects both our spiritual and physical health. Immediate consequences and long-term consequences are at stake. Are you or are we consuming things that can pollute
Mm.
our mind? Are we consuming things that can pollute our mind? Just leave that question. If what are the things that we need to think right about? There are three things
Consuming things.
that we need to look at.
Assignment.
Number one, think right about God. There are these four things, not three, four things that we need to think right about. And number one is think right about God. And Second Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3 to 5 reminds us to take every thought captive. We are to assume responsibility to thinking right and dwelling on the right things. Remember that we are engaged in spiritual warfare. This has to do with destruction of mental fortresses or internal strongholds. The ideas in our mind that are stuck here and cause us to be enslaved to wrong thinking. If we have the right knowledge about God, who He is, the truth presented in His Word, in His promises, this will help us battle the lies of the enemy. In Joshua 8:44, the devil inserts ideas in our mind like that are against God's will and then accuse us of having those kinds of thoughts. Peter, when he tried to stop Jesus from his impending death, was rebuked by Jesus, saying that Peter was more concerned about man's interest rather than God's will. It's in Matthew 16:23. How do we battle this lie? By focusing on the truth. Soren Kierkegaard said, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe in what is not true, and the other is to refuse to believe what is true. That Soren Kierkegaard said. Again, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. Keep on thinking right about God, and you will be able to guard your thoughts life. A.W. Tozer said, what enters your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. Some more truths about God to focus on. This is the some truths about God that we need to focus on. Because God is sovereign and all-powerful. God is sovereign and powerful God. That is in Isaiah chapter 46 verse 9 and 10. So we must focus. God is perfect. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 4. We must focus on God is light and shield. That is in Psalms 84, 11 to 12. So, we need to focus on God sovereign and all-powerful, and God is perfect, and God is light and our shield. That's three. And the second thing, and the second that we need to think right about is we need to have the right think about self. Think right about self. When it comes to the self, instead of sulking in your own despair and insecurities, just to remember that God loves you so much. 1 John 4:16 to 17. God loves us so much. And we are commanded to renew our mind, as it says in Romans 12:2. We need